This weekend was my first weekend ever watching a USL game. Before this weekend, I have never watched a United Soccer League game ever. So similar to how last year was my first full season watching MLS games, this year is going to be my first season ever watching USL games. And I was very impressed. I was very impressed by what I saw. And I'm also glad that a lot of the rivalry games took place during the international break. It made it very compelling for somebody like me who never watched a USL game to actually watch it on the ESPN app. The Phoenix San Diego game, it lived up to the hype. It wasn't like the El Clasico game that did not live up to the hype. The Phoenix San Diego game lived up to the hype, and it was interesting from start to finish. Another game I enjoyed was the Detroit-Pittsburgh game, mainly because Detroit's logo. Whoever created the Detroit logo, you deserve a raise. Whoever you are, whoever the artist is that created the design, the picture, that person deserves a raise. On the game aspect of it, both teams were going at it. Both teams it was like defensive. It looked like just like a traditional backyard soccer match. Two teams who didn't want to lose to each other, but at the same time, they didn't want each other to score, which is why I believe it was a 1-1 tie, because both teams didn't want the other team to score so badly, so they're more focused on the defense rather than the offense. But after one team scored the goal, the other team felt like they had to score the goal because they definitely couldn't go away with the loss. Another game that was similar to the Detroit-Pittsburgh game was the Indy Louisville game. Now, I know when it comes to sports in general, the states of Indiana and Kentucky do not like each other. I don't know what the root cause of this is, but from my personal experience with this rivalry goes back to my college days when I was a student at a college in Kentucky. I didn't know, me not being from Kentucky, I didn't know anything about the state when it comes to sports. I quickly learned that the state is a basketball state. And in the state of Kentucky, you're either a Kentucky Wildcats fan or you're a Louisville Cardinals fan. But at the same time, those two schools do not like Indiana. Kentucky and Indiana college basketball is one of the most fiercest rivalries in college sports. When it comes to college sports basketball rivalry, people just talk about Duke. They talk about Duke in North Carolina and Kentucky Louisville. But the Kentucky-Indiana college basketball rivalry is just as intense and it's just as fierce as the Kansas-Missouri rivalry, the North Carolina-Duke rivalry. It's also just as fierce as the Alabama-Auburn football rivalry. So when I saw Indy 11, and Louisville City going against each other on the schedule, I knew that this was going to be very interesting, very tough. And similar to the Detroit-Pittsburgh game, it was a defensive battle. Both teams did not want the opponent to score. But after the first team scored, the second team said, oh no, we can't lose to these guys. We cannot give these guys 3 points. It's better off that we get a tie. So the other team scored. Now, once it was 1-1, both teams went back to their defensive mindset of saying, yeah, I let you score once, but I'm not going to let you score again. That was my USL weekend. And, oh yeah, and now Sunday, the Sacramento-Tulsa game. Oh man, Sacramento looks good. Sacramento really looks good. Sacramento looks like a MLS team. Sacramento looks like an MLS team. But at the same time, Tulsa, they held their own weight too. Tulsa held their own weight, but Sacramento, they look like a team that wants to dominate the USL. They're saying not so fast Phoenix, Rising Phoenix, not so fast San Diego, not so fast Atlanta United 2, not so fast Birmingham. We want to be the king of the USL. Sacramento really looks good. So the league has potential to grow. The league has potential to create a league of its own. Like, it doesn't have to compete with the MLS. It can have a working relationship with the MLS, but it doesn't have to be exactly like the MLS. Which is why I'm saying the USL must protect its assets, because there's opportunities for growth. There's opportunities for good rivalries to develop. You got Phoenix, San Diego, Indy, Louisville, Tulsa, OKC, Oakland, Monterey Bay, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Birmingham, Atlanta United 2. Now, we know that Atlanta United 2 is not leaving the USL because Atlanta is already Atlanta United in the MLS. But Birmingham strongly desires to be up there in the MLS. I read this one article, I believe like the owner of Birmingham Legion, they even said the ultimate goal is to be the MLS, which is understandable. There's more money to be made in the MLS. And when it comes to these businesses, they never have enough money. These business owners, it's never enough money for them. But I would say not so fast Birmingham. In my honest opinion, you could probably make more money building a USL empire, a USL giant in the Southeast, rather than having to compete against the likes of Atlanta United, Nashville, Charlotte, Orlando City, Miami. You can build a soccer empire against the likes of Charleston, Memphis, Tampa. That's just my honest opinion. And it's up to the USL to convince Birmingham Legion about about the opportunities, about the possibility of that happening. USL, you have to sell your business plan to these owners of these clubs right now. You cannot have another situation as Cincy, because in my opinion, the grass is not always greener on the other side. Cincinnati had an opportunity to create a good soccer economy in the USL rather than the MLS. Because look at the map of Cincinnati. If FC Cincy would have stayed in the USL, you could have created good rivalries with Indy 11, Louisville, Loudoun, Pittsburgh, Detroit. Now you're in the MLS. As of right now, what do you have? A DC United in your region? I'm talking about the Middle East region. The Middle East region. Well, now you got Chicago, DC. I don't know if Nashville counts as Middle East. It's really Southeast. So, you got St. Louis coming next year. But Louisville, Indy, those are closer cities. Those are real regional rivalries. You can also add Detroit to that list. Pittsburgh, you limit yourself. Cincy, I know there's more money to be made on the MLS side, but you're just in a town that's not soccer frenzy. A town that has traditionally been rugby style football. That's traditionally been a rugby style football town. You would have been better off winning the city by staying in the USL, having yearly matches with Indy, Louisville, Pittsburgh, and Detroit, rather than you being in the MLS and you're not having that much regional cities that the typical sports fan can be familiar with to rally around your team. Now you gotta rely on St. Louis, Chicago. But that's just my opinion. I understand there's more money to be made in the MLS, but I don't know. Some teams lose more than they make. Then you got another team that has potential to pull off a Cincinnati move is the Las Vegas Lights, because Las Vegas is going to be number 30. Las Vegas is going to be number 30, MLS team number 30. The MLS wants Las Vegas to be team number 30. But what happens if Las Vegas ends up in another situation as Sacramento? Because remember, like 2 or 3 years ago, the talk was Sacramento was going to be MLS team number 30. This was like a year or two ago. The talk was Sacramento being MLS team number 30. But because a billionaire owner pulled out of the plans, that gave way for Las Vegas to emerge as MLS team number 30. But what if the two current billionaire owners, Wes Edens and Nassef Sawiris, excuse me if I say his name wrong, Nassef Sawiris, what if they pull out of the plans? But for now, that doesn't look like it's going to happen, because it's like the MLS really wants Vegas to be number 30. So Las Vegas Lights, these are going to be these two scenarios for you that's getting ready to happen. Number one, you either move to the MLS, or number two, your team no longer exists. Now let's stick with the first scenario. You move to the MLS. Now you have to compete against a fierce Western Conference. The Western Conference in the MLS is far more tougher than the Eastern Conference. The reason why is this: people out west cherishes traditional football more than rugby style football. Traditional football is more popular out west than it is out east. And I think the reason why it's like that is because you have a larger Hispanic population out west, rather like a stronger Mexican American population out west rather than out east. And Mexican American traditional football is part of their culture. Unlike out east, you have your traditional Americans, rugby style football is more part of their culture. So you're going to be competing against LA Galaxy, which is the most storied football club in American soccer. Amongst all American soccer clubs, LA Galaxy is the best. It's the most prestigious. It's the most storied. It's been the most successful American soccer club in American soccer history. So you got to compete against LA Galaxy. Then you got to compete against LAFC. They're a club that's trying to catch up to LA Galaxy. They want to be on LA Galaxy's level. That's why you saw them making all these off-season moves. Then you got to deal with Salt Lake and Colorado playing in that altitude. then you got to deal with Portland and Seattle. Then you got to deal with Kansas City. Then you got to deal with Austin, a young but ambitious football club. It's going to be tough, Las Vegas. It's going to be very, very tough. And then what if scenario 2 happens? Your team no longer exists. So you basically lose your club, and the opportunity that you had to create good competition with San Diego and Phoenix and Sacramento and El Paso and New Mexico, all that goes down the drain. Las Vegas Lights, you being in the USL gives you a better opportunity to really build a good soccer economy rather than joining the MLS right now, which it may sound like just think about it. Las Vegas Lights, Las Vegas in general is not a big city. It's big because tourism. It's a big tourist city. That's why it seems big on paper, but in actuality, Las Vegas is on the same level as Phoenix, San Diego, Albuquerque, Tucson, El Paso. You're more familiar with those type of cities rather than LA, Seattle, Denver, Dallas, Vegas. You have a better opportunity, similar to Birmingham, to grow a football empire out west, the Southwest. Really, the Southwest Desert amongst Phoenix, El Paso, and New Mexico. But, once these billionaire owners get involved, things changes. And then there's a World Cup coming up. So I'm sure America wants Las Vegas to be one of those cities that host the World Cup. The MLS expansion team in Las Vegas will give way for a multi-million-dollar soccer-based stadium. And that will give America the opportunity to showcase that multi-million-dollar soccer-based stadium in a world-class tourist city. So I understand why MLS wants Vegas. MLS and American soccer as a whole wants Vegas to be number 30. It makes a lot of sense. USL. You must find a way to convince clubs that the MLS is not a better option. USL, you can truly grow the same way college football started to grow since the 60s. Like, look at college football now. Look at the SEC and the Big Ten. Those big colleges that you see now, they weren't always big like that. They grew over time. Steady growth. USL, your business model is better than the MLS because you're not starting off as big. You're starting off as small and you're growing over time. You're not starting off as big and trying to maintain trying to maintain such magnitude over time. That is very difficult for you to start off big and for you to maintain that high level of magnitude over time. Historically speaking, businesses that started off big, they usually fail. They usually fail over time. But businesses think about businesses like Amazon, McDonald's, Walmart, they started off small and they grew big over time. They didn't start off big and try to maintain such high level of magnitude. USL, your business model is similar to Amazon, Walmart, and McDonald's. You're starting off small and you're growing over time, steady growth. That is a better business model than you starting off as a billionaire organization and trying to maintain such high level of magnitude. Because historically speaking, this always happens. Businesses that start off big usually falls. Businesses that start off small and decide to grow steadily over time becomes bigger and more sustainable. USL, your business model is better than the MLS's business model because one thing is your grassroots. Look at how Detroit City. Look how Detroit City built their stadium, keyword stadium. Detroit City Football Club, they created a crowd-based investment program to renovate the stadium. And the crowd base is just based on grassroots. It's basically donor base. So Detroit City got the community involved to help renovate the stadium that they currently have. That is how you grow. You get the people involved. If you want the people to support you, you get them involved in building your club. And because the people are involved, they cherish your club more because they have a say. They had a say in how your club grew because you got them involved. That's what the USL is doing. The USL is getting the fans involved and growing its league, rather than the MLS heavily relying on billionaire business owner and big businesses. The USL is more American than the MLS because the USL is small business reliant. They're more familiar with the everyday man, rather than the MLS big business, rich man, you know? So USL, you got to be able to convince that to your clubs. Grow steadily with us. I know it looks better on the other side. I know the big stadiums and the big TV deals. I know it looks better on the other side. But stay with us. We have a vision. We have a plan. And we're going to get there. But we need you to stay with us. That's what you got to convince to every USL club. Because USL, you got a lot of potential. I saw it this past weekend. You have a lot of potential, but you have to find a way to convince your current members to stay the course. Convince them not to jump ship.